Podcast starts now. Yay.
Cool.
That's how we answer it.
It's the best one yet.
I don't think so. I think it's probably the worst one yet.
No, somewhere in the middle.
So nice to see your friendly faces.
Thank you.
I have a friendly face.
Yeah, look at that.
He's talking about the reflection of his own face.
Yeah. He's just, all he does is talk to himself this entire time and just pretends. I've got friends.
The movie podcast. You know what? When we were talking recently about we should have named this podcast like Yeah Movies Whatever or Yeah Movies.
Well, certainly with the more recent introductions, yes.
That's the sentiment of the show.
Feels like a far more appropriate title.
General musings of three movie lovers.
Let's be really factual with what we are.
Movie lovers even covers the three of us at this point. Movie sometimes watches.
Well, I feel like I'm going through a much more creation stage in movies I'm kind of feel like I'm sort of taking all this work we've sort of absorbed over the past years and trying to put it into practice. So
Hell yeah.
I got to think that must be so difficult for creators to, try and think about the critic's mentality of like, I think that I think it depends on your temperament, because it does seem as though some people just like take all of that in and try and like, quote unquote, do better next time.
Yeah.
There's other people like, I couldn't give a fuck what anyone thinks about my stuff. I'm just doing it.
We'll be talking about one of them later.
You have to have this vehement, like, I'm going for it, because like you're going to learn each one. And even I was watching a clip of David Lynch the other day, and he said he was talking about why he does commercials, and he's like, point number one, they pay me money.
Yeah. Love
in his David Lynch like condescending.
Also, he's cracked the code.
Yeah.
You can never be criticized if your stuff is just so incoherent.
But he says, number two, I learn something every time. He has a budget, he plays with things. Each shoot you learn something. So that's something I'm noticing. But what's cool about this one, and something I will say, is that we've got about 20 computer-generated shots that we're doing with somebody in Russia. And he's done some stuff for us before, and it's been really great.
Illusion.
But I think if I didn't have corridor crew and all that stuff, I would be I wouldn't really know what to do in these situations. Like, I know what I'm trying to achieve, but like, it's interesting. It's just the content that's out there in this movie making sphere. It's pretty incredible. And these guys, like, it's cool that they're just sharing information, and then they become, by sharing the information, they become the leaders of that next generation of whatever field.
Well, Pony Smasher, David F. Sandberg, I find so inspirational.
Oh, he's amazing.
I love how understanding he is that every time he makes a video, he knows everyone just wants the making of that video, because they're so instructional and so interesting. But
he is amazing because he does all the VFX and stuff, and
music.
I'm starting to do some tutorials in that space, but that's a whole other kettle of fish that, like, insane. So he's a jack of all trades in the truest sense, and amazing. I'll go into what we've been watching this week. I'll keep hijacking this podcast.
Fine.
Saw a movie that you guys have been raving about for a very long time.
He's finally seen Sonic the Hedgehog. Thanks.
Sonic the Hedgehog. James Marsden for president. Fuck Biden, no, thank God, Biden. You lefty social justice warrior piece of shit.
Let's not get political here.
You can move on. It's fine.
Just like on the record, I'm so thankful Biden won. What was I talking about just then? A movie you guys saw earlier this year at Fantastic Film Fest.
Oh yeah. Because you messaged us that you were going to say
Maud. Wow.
Right?
You guys, you talk a lot of bullshit week after week. I have to put up with it. And you guys are on the money with
Surely
this.
the fact that Connor and I agreed completely about a film sort of said something.
I don't know if that makes me more suspicious about a film or less suspicious.
There's been a few along the way where I've been on my own little island defending myself to the bitter end. You guys were fucking on the money with this. Like,
we deserve full credit.
Well done, like executive producers. Like without you guys, this wouldn't have come to fruition.
Rose Glass did one or two things, but
Rose Glass, like as she's 30 years old, incredibly inspiring. Like this could be top 5 horror movies for me of all time. Like
fantastic.
It's that good.
Yeah.
The cinematography, the storytelling, the character study, you know, every level this film is pumping on all cylinders. And there's only one thing in it that I mentioned to you, Benny, as a real, like a shitty nitpick. And I don't even know why I'm bringing it up right now so early in the review. But I want to kind of say that that's all I had. That one silly little nitpick.
What was the nitpick?
It's regards the ending of the film. We can't really go into it.
Yeah. And it's like more as an aesthetic choice than anything else.
Anything to do with like the good part of the ending?
No.
Okay, right.
No, he was very sold on the very end.
Oh yeah, that was. Anyway, just if you guys listening can get to Saint Maud at some point, like do it because it's that good.
I'm so happy that in this year of all years, all three of us managed to see this in a cinema. Under very different circumstances. I'm so glad we got to show that again.
I really hope this gets a wide release.
Well, the audience for this recent session was quite large for what this is in this year. So word of mouth is obviously working for it.
It's starting to do the runs kind of through the forums and the circles and whatnot. So yeah, amazing. You can't really talk much more about it without going into spoilers.
I mean, even if you took out the last, let's say, 20 minutes, it's a tough movie to talk about because the pacing on it is it is fairly slow. It's kind of a very slow build. And it doesn't really give you much to talk about in terms of like really anything.
But a great use of single spotlight. The recent video clip we've done, we've tried to sort of emulate a fireplace kind of thing, and there's so much of a single candle source in this, and they choose like a really focused in lens right on the character's face. And oftentimes you can't actually even see that she's heterochromatic. The character had different color eyes. A lot of the times the dark scenes, it almost looks like she's just like a black pupil, like a giant black pupil almost. Really creepy sort of look. And that was just like pure, literally a camera, a single frame, and an actor in front. And it blew my mind how beautifully shot this was. Like, outstanding work. I think Rose Glass is... Hopefully the next project is as good because there's so much potential here.
Yeah, this is one of those wonderful experiences where I had high expectations and they were exceeded. And then I went to see it again and it was even better. So it was just like the perfect experience.
Way exceeded. Like I was expecting almost more Conjuring-y or Hereditary-esque, and this is something in its own ballpark.
Yeah. I enjoy going to certain films with you, Ben, because you do something that I do quite often. If I've seen a film and someone else hasn't, is you wait until there's like an awesome scene and then you kind of look at them and be like, well, what do you think?
Yeah.
And there's been a couple of examples of that. And this obviously had one of those. In it.
A couple.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
So you got onto it.
I think like in terms of hype train, I'm way more hyped on Rose Glass than I was Ari Aster with Hereditary. And I was hyped on Hereditary. Whatever's coming next is going to be nuts.
It's going to be very disappointing, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Negative.
All right, well, I'll introduce our ongoing weekly segment of catching up with The Mandalorian, which we're failing at very badly right now because both weeks we've just not been on the same page.
Yeah.
But now...
Are you fully caught up?
Connor and I have seen episode 1 and 2.
So why don't we talk about... Because we didn't really talk about episode 1 last time. So why don't we... Actually, if we're going to do that, can I just quickly go through what I watched first, and then we'll get to Mandalorian?
No, you're really throwing me off track here.
I'm just going to really quickly, because you'll appreciate this as well. Okay. I got to season 1 of The Boys.
Okay,
Binged it right through. I know you've already spoken about this, so I'll kind of keep this brief, but I was really interested. It kind of surpassed all my expectations. I was expecting a series that was going to rely on overly grotesque, nudity and violence and all that kind of stuff, which it all has, but it doesn't lean on that gimmick. There are some very cool, interesting, and well thought out themes in the actual fabric of this series, and it played out really well. It was also really well acted as well, so that obviously helps out. Good production value, good casting, everything like that. So I was really impressed with season 1. I thought that was really, really well done.
Yeah, I thought you might like it.
Very keen to get on to season 2.
I really think I dislike this show quite a lot, despite having watched all of it.
Dislike?
Yeah, I had a bit of a reckoning with it the other day, and I think I kind of figured out where my feelings are coming from, which is that this show is somewhat a dissection of superheroes and superhero culture, and superheroes being like the main form of entertainment nowadays. And I think it is somewhat of a rudimentary dissection.
That's interesting.
Where it was, I've read some amazing, extremely interesting deep dives into these, existing characters and superheroics in general, and this kind of comes up short for me in that regard. And so I kind of bristle with how popular it seems to be with a lot of people. But I think
more prefer like M. Night Shyamalan's take on superheroes, correct?
Of course, yeah. Jesus, that movie sucks. But no, wait, sorry. Oh God, no. Oh God, I was thinking of Brightburn. Brightburn was a masterpiece compared to fucking Glass.
Yeah.
No.
So it's interesting that you say that, because I didn't go there. I thought that was a very surface level thing that they were trying to do. There was some obvious parallels with, the superhero genre. There was like the VCU, which they mentioned in that, obviously referencing the MCU. But I thought that wasn't necessarily what they were really trying to get at. Like, the crux of this was looking at kind of capitalism and kind of rampant commercialization, celebrity worship, and also the kind of underbelly of kind of like not tyranny as such, but this kind of undercurrent of tyranny, right? Like this subverted.
And it is all there. And I hate to sound like a fucking prick, but I just don't think it's the most nuanced look at it, unfortunately. And
this is not a show that I would call nuanced. I do think it is well thought out in terms of like, creating a world in which you can see these lines being painted very starkly, like kind of dissected and given to the masses and said, this is how corrupt, like if this was the world, this is how it would be twisted.
That's just how it just feels like such base level satire to me. Like very obvious look at this. Like it feels like something that was written 20 years ago, because it is something that was written 20 years ago. Anyway, I'm glad you enjoyed it, because I know a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And what I was kind of getting at is I think why a lot of people do enjoy it is, again, not to sound like, I'm high cultured in the world of superhero stuff, but I think because the much more straight-laced, sincere superhero culture is like the big stuff right now, the MCU and all that, to have something that is kind of more taking the piss and doing something from a slightly different angle, I can see why that really speaks to people, because, all of this regular stuff is so pervasive that it would be good to see kind of something taking a different look at it.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Let's talk about Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 1.
Yes.
There's one thing about this movie or this series that I really love, and I suspected it would be something that you really loved as well, which was the big cameo, or not the big cameo, but a big cameo of Timothy Olyphant as reprising his role from Justified.
Or Deadwood, or
any of the other gunslinging roles.
He was so good,
he's done. Yeah, I loved him, and I loved that he just did not at all fit into that Boba Fett outfit.
Yeah,
he looked like such a dickhead.
Yeah, he looked so awkward, and like immediately when like it's great because like everyone that I've heard talk about it kind of talks about as he was that silhouette in that thing. Everyone thought, fuck, that's not right. Like, that's so
immediately, something's off.
What happened to Boba?
And he's going back to Tatooine, and they're like, "Oh, okay, here we go."
Yeah.
And then that happens, and you're like, "Okay, we're going somewhere
this is
interesting."
Yeah,
He's
Cool.
he's a lot of fun. He's such a performer who's just like really grown in everyone's esteem over the years. I think. Like,
I remember when I remember when it was like not popular or to like Timothy Oliphant? Like there's
Because he was in like Hitman was like his only leading role, and you're like, wow, this guy kind of sucks. I think not that that's a way to judge anyone.
yeah, I was like, that's rough.
But my God, I think he's really improved over the years, especially his fucking like hair and beard. Holy crap, he looks so cool in this.
Yeah, he looks fucking well put
Like,
together.
now that's a sheriff. Yeah, I enjoyed this episode a lot.
Yeah. Fun sort of like everyone's got to band together for a common goal.
I certainly take I take your point in terms of it does kind of reminisce the village defeating the ATST
Sort of the common enemy or whatever.
Which was already a remake of Seven Samurai. So
yeah, I do understand that. However, I think that this one pulled it off a lot better.
Yeah.
I think there was, a reason for him to be there.
Scale that was epic.
Yeah.
Like the VFX done was incredible. Like the sandworm design and
not
everything.
really how I pictured a crate dragon.
Crate dragon.
Oh, crate dragon, sorry.
But what I really loved about this episode, and I'm not, when it comes to The Mandalorian, I'm kind of a least fan of it when it's doing really Star Warsy stuff, when it's really trying to tie into that universe a little too hard. But what I really liked about this episode was they did a really cool job of, I think, salvaging that hilarious Obi-Wan crate dragon call from the like special edition or whichever special edition. But it sounds so much like it, but it sounds really cool. I'm like,
yeah,
this is kind of like, I love that they are acknowledging that really sad chapter of
I
Star Wars
didn't even
history.
pick up on that. But yeah, I mean, the level of detail in this is insane. Like little Anakin's pod racer that he's riding.
See, that's all the stuff I'm like, I don't really need everything to be.
But
and then R4, R5, D4 or some shit showing up.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that
the one with the bad motivator from.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I'm like, come on, man. Like, we don't need all of this shit.
I like that. I like that a lot.
No, that's so fucking.
And it wasn't
so
exactly
surface level.
Anakin's. Like there's debate whether it's Anakin's, but at least it's a pod racer. Like a salvage
Yes,
pod racer.
I liked. I'm like,
That's
I think
cool.
that might be a pod racer. That's kind of cool. But
I like the sort of like the small. It felt that classic Western vibe. The small town riding,
which is what The Mandalorian has done really well so far. When it's firing on all cylinders.
But there's a lot of different types of episodes. I feel like I would be hard pressed to say like some of those latter episodes feel like westerns. Like they're a lot more action adventure. Like there's certain episodes that feel more westerny. And I think that's definitely with the context in this one just felt more dialed in.
Yeah, it ebbs and flows, but I mean overall, this you could probably classify The Mandalorian as a western.
I mean, should we say there's spoilers
for episode 1? Yeah.
So if you haven't seen episode 1,
the least interesting part of this episode.
Yeah. Spoilers coming up now. So skip forward.
Just fucking Boba Fett. Like it's such a
that was so good.
a nothing.
Well,
what are you getting sucked into this? Really?
I mean, we all knew.
Be better than that.
We all
George.
knew.
Oh, you know me.
We have reported on the fact that Tamura Morrison is in this show. I like.
If there's one way to do it, I'm glad they did it that way.
Yeah, well, I
I
just want to say, like, yes, I don't feel like it's 100% confirmed as Boba Fett because he could also be any of the 10,000 clones that he also played. But yeah, it's probably Boba Fett. And there was even Deadline was reporting this week that there might be a Boba Fett spin-off in the works, which I'm just like, let's not. We don't need 2 fucking Boba Fett shows because that's what the Mandalorian is in the first place. But yeah, well, I'm interested to see where they go with it.
I will give them the sliver of a chance that they pull this off and they make this more than just a grab opportunity at an existing name.
A lot of it hinges on how he got out of the Sarlacc pit.
In Favreau, we trust.
No.
John Favreau?
Yes.
Say?
Yeah.
No, fuck that guy. He directed The Lion King.
Yeah. There's literally the example I was going to make.
Nah, we agree.
No, to be fair, he was in a big corporate that time.
Yeah.
Like he was being directed by.
Lucasfilm. Right. Lucasfilm. That's right.
Right. No.
Different company that happens to be owned by Disney.
Not in Jon Favreau we trust. I like him. Like I like a lot of the stuff he's done, but
he's writing and directing this. Like he wrote episode 1. Did you like episode 1?
Yeah.
You
like
liked
I said,
it.
There's lots of stuff that he has done that I enjoyed, but I'm not above thinking that he would, if the board came down and said we want X, Y, and Z in this, whether it makes a good story or not.
He's
going to
be like, get Boba Fett in here.
Yeah,
already I'm interested.
Like, at the end of the day, I do like him as a filmmaker, and I do mostly enjoy The Mandalorian. Season 1 I thought was a mixed bag. I'm enjoying Season 2 so far, though.
Tell me about episode 2.
Episode 2, I was like a very kind of isolated adventure.
Very,
It felt
yeah.
very stand apart from like any kind of overarching narrative, which I
Cool.
really appreciate. I like that a lot more. There's a lot less
Monster of
tie-ins
the week.
to Star Wars as a whole.
Fun.
It was just, weird fucking puppets and strange locations. I'm like, this is cool. There was like the jankiest, like fucking spider praying mantis character at the beginning. I loved it.
This
was
is going to
such-
give people nightmares, if I'm honest.
It was such a throwback to
Cool.
like just the cantina in
Yeah.
the old movie, the first
I,
movie.
I really enjoyed episode 2. Not a lot happened, but it was a good little kind of like creature feature, thing like that. So yeah, I appreciated episode 2 as well.
Everyone's going on
Um,
about the frog eggs that Yoda eats.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, apart from the fact that Yoda does eat them, I'm not sure what.
I love
to
I love
say.
how
Are they the lady's eggs or the frog
Yeah,
lady's eggs?
Yeah.
It's like he's eating your children.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
it's
it.
a dick move.
I love how insistent Disney is on being like, it's not Baby Yoda, it's the child. Everyone call it the child. I'm like, you can't fight the meme culture.
yeah. I was
It's Baby
like,
Yoda.
But
Come
how?
on,
But how
Yoda.
can they call it Baby Yoda?
I
in the
know
show?
they
If-
can't,
if-
but that's what everyone in the world calls it. So that's such a shit position they're in from like a marketing perspective because they've created the ultimate cash cow in terms of merchandise, but they can't sell it as what everyone
Baby
knows it
Yoda,
as.
yeah.
Unless they just start selling toys of literally Yoda as a baby and just looks exactly the same. But I love how little they've leaned on the child so far in this
Well,
season.
because every time, right, there's that opportunity for the child to just reach out and force away.
but not
whatever.
even from a narrative perspective, just from how popular that character was
Mm.
and what a sensation it was, and it would be so easy for them to just go full on like mascot mode.
They have
First
done a little
episode
bit of
barely
like when
featured it.
he's hugging the Mandalorian and shit like that. You're like, all right, I see what's happening. Here.
But I love that they're like even pushing the boundaries of how gross Baby Yoda is. Like when he's like eating the baby
Yeah,
spider,
yeah.
and it's like this dude's disgusting. I love it.
fucked up
They're going
dude.
in a good direction with him so far.
yeah.
Any spoilers in
Also-
there?
Not really.
Where does it end?
Mando survives. It's fine.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Where does it end?
Just watch it. It's fine.
The journey continues.
Yeah.
There's like no big Boba Fett reveal or anything.
What about the Darksaber?
The Darksaber doesn't show
Doesn't
up.
show
either.
up. There's
What
no
about
like
Gus?
as we said. There's no progression of the
Giancarlo
story.
Esposito,
Yeah.
Neither.
Like
No.
nothing has happened.
What about the other guy?
Nope, not the other guy.
All dead.
What's her name is back again. The comedian who's playing that random woman on Tatooine is an even
Oh,
bigger
yeah,
role in this one.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that tonally fits the rest of the
Yeah,
show.
I'm not
but whatever.
sure.
There were a couple of things that happened in this episode that also kind of had throwbacks as well, which I wasn't hugely a fan of, like her being in the same booth as Han Solo when he shot what's his face. I was like, oh come on, this is not everything has to take place in
I'm
the
fucking
old
over it,
spot.
eh?
Wasn't it the coolest thing in the
You
world?
you were just falling for it. What are you?
He's over it now. You know he moves quick.
Yeah.
My main takeaway, honestly, from these first 2 episodes is just the reminder of how fucking good that Mandalorian outfit is.
I was thinking that
Especially
watching
when
it,
you look next to with Boba Fett next to it. It's
Yeah.
like, man, that's a bad outfit.
Oh, how about that Cyclops character in the first episode? He was great.
Yeah, or like an awesome
lot
mix
of
of
fun.
practical and CGI.
Really dope.
Looks kind of dumb, but that's perfect for Star Wars.
No, it looked fabulous.
Yeah. I love that Boba Fett finally shot his back missile and just looked like the biggest dick. Like not Boba Fett, but
Yeah, he
such an
leaned
impractical
down
dummy,
and,
but
like-
woo.
It's got to happen.
Can I share? I want to steal something from another podcast I listened to, which I thought was a really interesting little detail from Star Wars Episode 2, which is, you know how in the original trilogy Boba Fett is essentially killed by his backpack or his jetpack going off, unexpectedly, and it shoots him into the barge and he falls into the Sarlacc, and then Jango Fett really goes out like a bitch. Mace Windu just
Yeah.
lops his head off.
yeah,
But a little detail I've never noticed in any time I've seen this film is that when he's first fighting Obi-Wan in that first fight on Kamino,
Yeah.
Obi-Wan's coming at him with a lightsaber and he jetpacks away and like shoots off and gets out of there. On the in the Colosseum planet with the big Jedi battle at the end there, his jetpack gets damaged by that big rhino thing.
Okay.
And when Mace Windu's coming at him, you see him try and fire it off to get out of it, and it doesn't work. And he gets his head cut off. I'm like,
That is
that's a cool little detail.
incredibly interesting.
Yeah, and it really cycles back to Boba Fett
That
as well.
changes the whole movie.
It's a good movie now.
It's a great movie.
Top 12 Star Wars movies.
Even then, it's we could find some like off-brand.
Anyway, I just thought that was actually kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's great.
For all the little weird cyclical shit they do in those movies that are just pointless, stupid, callbacks. I thought that one was actually subtle.
I've always had a not a contentious relationship, but like it's a bit weird because I love facts like those, but I also think, is it a failure of storytelling if
No one notices it?
If no one notices
20
it
years.
and you only find it out if you're like neck deep and stuff. And I can understand that for little Easter eggs that don't really matter, but if you're talking about like a major character that you know is meant to have some kind of impact, and you don't get that impact unless you happen to notice these couple of things. That kind of I'd consider that a failure of storytelling.
Also, sorry, just
nonetheless
speaking of-
cool, but
Shame on you, George Lucas. Shame on you.
Speaking of episode 2, I'm just going to name drop here. I met Natalie Portman the other night.
did you really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she was at the cinema.
Yeah, she's over here shooting Thor 4.
What'd she say?
Of course.
She said, get the fuck away from me. Then I got thrown to the ground by security. Yeah, she's tiny. Anyway, what's next?
News?
Yeah,
News.
okay. We finally got some more news on the Fantastic Beasts franchise. The third
Still
movie,
the weirdest name.
the third movie, the sequel to Crimes of Grindelwald, just started shooting. Johnny Depp had filmed one scene as said character and then released a statement shortly afterwards that he's leaving the franchise because he's been asked to step down by Warner Brothers.
Yep.
So obviously this past year has seen just a lot of headlines coming out about the couple of cases that he's involved with. The one that just wrapped up in the UK was a libel case against the newspaper The Sun regarding them, a headline calling him a wife beater. He lost that case, and only then did Warner Brothers decide they didn't want to be working with Johnny Depp. It was. I mean, I think we can all agree it was kind of a shock to see him involved in that franchise in the first place because his reputation's been spiraling for a long time. But
It's. I mean,
let's be fair. There wasn't a person in the world who, when Colin Farrell turned into Johnny Depp, was like, "Oh yeah."
it's literally what I was about to say. I was like, it did seem like a strange, just from a casting, like take his personal life aside, from a casting perspective, Colin Farrell was like spot on for Grindelwald.
Yeah,
I always do that.
I know, I love
Grindelwald.
it.
Grindelwald.
And just the one little last tidbit about this is, despite having only filmed the one scene, he will be getting his
$10 million.
over $10 million payout for the movie. So, don't feel too bad for him. So yeah, this series was already in serious trouble. Do you think this helps or hinders?
Oh, 100% it hinders.
It hinders because
the damage is already done, right? Anyone that was going to leave this
conjecture.
franchise.
It was conjecture at that point,
But I'm saying, like, anyone that was going to leave has left. This doesn't do any favors for people that had stayed, for Johnny Depp. I'm not sure how many people were staying on this.
Exactly. I do think it does present an opportunity for them to just be like, the only logical move here is to bring back literally the person who has played this character in one of the 2 movies we've made, get Colin Farrell back on board, have one stupid line that explains why, and then I would certainly go into that movie being more interested, going into the third movie.
I wouldn't be more interested, I guess, at this point.
Trash it all, man. Like,
yes,
put a fucking
I know that is completely
gasoline.
agreed, but they're not going to do that.
Get Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint. Get them a nice paycheck. Settle
And
them
do
down.
what?
Cursed Child.
Do a trilogy.
Do Cursed Child.
Let's say, guys, we're doing
It's already
3
named.
films. That's it. 3 films. It's going to be dope.
I mean-
and then there's going to be 7 series after that. We'll get to that, though. We'll get to that.
Yeah, that is
Don't worry.
That is the inevitable step they're going to have to take. They do need to figure this mess out first because they have made 2 movies out of a 5-movie series that they've promised. That is very much not resolved plot-wise. They've left on a massive cliffhanger.
You've got David Yates there, who's on his 18th fucking Harry Potter movie. He's like an institution at this stage, and I just don't necessarily know. What is his impetus to keep doing these movies? Is it a paycheck? What is it at this stage? Because I'm not seeing. I don't know. On multiple levels, this series is not working for me. And even having
or anyone.
the J.K. Rowling stamp of approval. Oh, she wrote the script. She's not a screenwriter.
There's a whole other issue there. I mean,
there's a whole other issue
Johnny
there.
Depp was not the worst PR issue that these movies have at the moment.
But she's not writing the next one, right?
I don't know.
I think they like
Divorced?
yeah.
Mm.
So
She's still getting fat checks.
Of
huh?
course.
She's still getting fat checks. So I'm sure she's like, I don't give a shit.
So it's one of those things where
Look, I just
That's how I feel about Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah,
I'm
how the
not-
world feels
And
about
do you
it.
know
though.
what that movie will end? There'll be another agonizing 20-minute fucking sequence with wands, and there'll be lightning, and there'll be a big thing that somebody conjures a giant skull or some bullshit, and it'll all be over, and there'll be a little hook at the end, and Ezra Miller will turn up, or some Colin Farrell will turn up, or some bullshit. And, you know, I'll go. It'll go to credits. It'll say directed by David Yates, and I'll go.
And you go, wow, I actually made it to the end of this one.
Another moment closer to the grave.
I think this could even present an opportunity for them wherein they say, shit, we can't make any more of this series because we just lost the big star. I guess we'll have to go back to making Harry Potter movies.
How do you? But
I mean, I
they've
don't
got to
want them to
deliver
do
on
that.
the three other movies.
I'm not even talking
right?
about want because I don't give a shit about any
They've
of
got
this Harry Potter
they've got
stuff.
to deliver on these other 3 movies. Like,
Well, that's the thing. I'm saying maybe they don't because I don't think they want to because
but
I think they're
what,
fucked.
What
like
franchise has done? I mean, yeah, I
loads.
They, I mean,
Yeah.
they,
DC
guess.
you.
Yeah.
They-
Yeah. Fuck.
I'm genuinely.
But
kind
Warner
of-
Brothers aren't like that. Warner Brothers are pretty good. They're directors. You know, Ben Affleck, Chris
DCEU
Nolan.
is Warner Brothers.
Yeah, but that's a division of Warner Brothers.
All right. No, I do think that they've kind of cornered themselves a little bit in more way than one.
100%.
They've done it
In more way.
in more way, yeah. In more way. I think they've done it narratively. I think they've done it PR wise, like just kind of logistically.
Mm.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised if they just can it now. They'll do this last film and then maybe continue.
Oh, so I think their only options are literally stopping now or making one film and like reconciling the remaining 3 into one.
Although
There's no
it
way
does-
we're getting 5 of these.
It does depend on how well this does, because I mean, the franchise hasn't done too poorly up until now. Realistically.
The last movie was like so by far the worst performing
Well,
Harry
what was
Potter
it?
film.
But what was it?
Right, what?
Do you-
How did it do?
Yeah. How did it
I don't know off the top of my
I
head.
think it was
but
hundreds of million.
yes, absolutely. A very bad return, I would say, on what they
But
paid
Harry
for
Potter,
it.
you want to be making
And for a
700,
Harry Potter
800,
movie, yeah.
900.
And it's part of a trend because the one before that did worse than the one before that. So, I mean,
Waning interest.
I'm not saying it's necessarily completely that simple, but I think it kind of is that simple in this case. If they made a third one of these, it would be, you know, an even worse return.
Do you know what? If I'm at Warner Brothers, I go, all right, here's the game plan. Listen up, motherfuckers. Let's wrap up, as you said, Benny, let's wrap up these next 3 films into one, condense it. Let's cap off Fantastic Beasts with a bang. Just throw everything at the wall on this one. If we
Get
fuck
Jude
it
Law
up,
and Colin Farrell to hook up.
if we fuck it up, we fuck it up. But that's it. It's done now. Next project. Where's this landscape going? Where are we heading? Okay, we're heading into streaming territory. We're not heading into the typical, you know, put out a movie like it's not the fucking 2001 anymore with Philosopher's Stone.
Well, so they're already doing that though. The
So-
reality is they're already moving into video games and VR and
But they've
all
done that for
kind
years.
of
But
aspect.
you know what we do is we hit the reset button and we go, we are going to do the Harry Potter books as a TV series. And each year we're going to do them as, you know, the first one could be 6 episodes. And then the second one could be, you know, Goblet of Fire could be 15 episodes or something. And you can get into all that shit that you, Connor, you say, they missed out on the scene when Dumbledore was scratching his ass and farted. And that really informed his character.
As much as I
That's
love
all that
idea,
shit, you will get that because there's a whole new generation that needs to happen. Hey, Nightmare on Elm Street got rebooted. Fucking The Thing got rebooted.
All right, so
How
these
many
are thi-
remakes have been
these-
of the Thing? 1950, 1980,
yeah,
2011.
but all right. Comparatively, who the fuck gives a shit about the
When
thing?
was the last Harry Potter movie? 2012?
Yeah,
8 years
So,
ago.
I mean,
That's a fucking eternity in the modern era.
I mean, potentially, but
You go back
most
to
of, all right. The
20
demographic,
years
the
ago.
demographic that cares about Harry Potter, still have those movies pretty like solid as the Harry Potter.
And that's why
films.
we don't compete on them. We don't make the movies. We are making a TV series.
of the movies. I mean, if you want to
No,
go
of
and do
the
a side,
books. Of
Yeah,
the books.
but it doesn't. Look,
No,
it
no,
doesn't
no,
matter.
no, 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 no.
Go and do a
no,
side
no,
show.
no. Don't tell me that because you're always whinging about how they fucked up Dumbledore.
I know, but I'm
So don't
not
tell
talking
me,
about what I want.
Don't tell me.
I'm
Don't
not
tell me
talking
we're
about what I want.
adapting the movie. We're getting specific here.
Fine, but I'm not talking about what I want. I'm talking about what any kind of like reasonable studio is going to do right now.
I'm
They're
saying, do you
not
know how
gonna-
many years it's going to take to develop this thing? It's going to be 4 years or 5 years before they get the first episode out. That's going to be 2026 or 2025. Start it now. Start that shit now. It'll literally be you can cast Daniel Radcliffe as Snape or somebody because you know what it'll be? It'll be 2026, and do you know what it'll be? 25 years, a quarter century since Philosopher's Stone came out in 2001.
So, Georgie, I think you're much more on the money with the fact that they're going to bring back the original cast and do more stuff with them. I think they will move into TV as well eventually because I think people have really been praying for that. I think they'll maybe wait and see how this Lord of the Rings stuff goes because that's, a familiar IP moving into that world, but they're doing a very different story. I think we'd,
That
people
it's
are
more
always
likely that they'll do that.
What are the people always asking for? The fucking like magical police. What are they called?
Sorry, magical police?
Yeah, from Harry Potter, like the Ministry of Magic.
Aurors.
Yeah. Do some shit like that because I think that'll because I think there's no way that while the young and still very popular cast of Harry Potter is still around, I think they'll absolutely want to leverage that. Point is, overall, this franchise is a bust, and I think they're going to want to do what they can do to get away from it as quickly as possible and get back to the stuff people like.
Yeah.
Audiences are sophisticated. So you didn't answer one thing that I'll challenge you on. But audiences are sophisticated now enough to have multiple things running in parallel. So you can still do Rupert Grint and all these guys come back.
This is true, George, but I think
TV thing.
I think companies are way too hesitant to do that just yet. I think the timeline you're talking about...
That's all your eggs in one basket.
The timeline you're talking about, maybe yes, but I think it took like DC, a fucking decade before they even
What would
wanted...
be the hesitations about doing a TV series like that?
Why does Kevin Feige hate the Netflix TV shows? They think it devalues the rest of the product because, as we're always talking about, the difference between
I'm talking about HBO level fucking shit.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like with Game of Thrones. I'm talking like 10 million an episode.
Which if you have a Game of Thrones, fine. Like that's booked to TV. It's not like they're taking movie stars and putting them into TV. There's still a mentality that that's a downgrade.
But isn't Harry Potter a book? Aren't we taking a book to TV?
No, you're taking a book to a movie to TV.
No, I'm not.
I mean, you can argue the semantics of it.
I don't think this won't happen, Judd. I don't think this won't happen. I would think that they would be reticent to do both of these at the time. I think they would do one or the other, and I think they'd bring back.
If
the
it
original
fucks
cast
up,
first.
you have that movie with those guys in the back pocket. Do you know what I mean? Like you have your ace card still.
No, I don't see
If you fuck up the trilogy with Radcliffe and shit, game over, baby.
It's also
See you later.
Do you think that there's a chance in hell that Radcliffe would actually sign off on that?
Yes.
No.
100%. It's an inevitability. Like
I
the
think
Cursed
so.
Child
I
movie
think-
will 100%.
I
happen
think
at some point.
Rupert Grint is probably the most, just purely on the fact that I never see that motherfucker.
He's got a TV series going. Right?
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
He had one with who's Simon Pegg's mate?
Nick Frost?
Nick Frost. He had one with Nick Frost, I'm pretty sure.
That sounds right. Like Sick Day or something.
Yeah. Look, if I'm perfectly honest, I don't think that Warner Brothers has the balls to develop multiple projects like what you're talking about. I just don't see that happening. I think that after this experiment with Fantastic Beasts, I do not think that they're going to go and kind of stray too far from surefire hits.
AKA the 7 books that are some of the
They're
biggest.
not going to redo a series as TV that they just did in movie like a decade
Didn't
before.
they do that with a movie called what? It? Huh?
Again,
What? Huh?
comparatively, who gives a fuck about it?
Who gives
no
a fuck
one.
about it? Are
A
you
lot-
kidding
a lot-
me?
a lot
One
of-
of the highest grossing
A lot of people do,
horror
but that was like
movies.
40 years.
That was 1991 to
Oh
what?
God, yeah, I always think that,
1991, and then what did the It book come out in 1980?
yeah, I always think that's a much bigger turnaround on the adaptations because that
What,
original
15, 25 years?
that original TV series looks so
Fuck,
garbage.
we're not far off. Once that actually gets commissioned and comes out, it'll be the same length of time.
All right, I'll do a steak dinner if we ever see this TV series.
I honestly think like we live in like we are okay as audiences to have Batman again, You know, like
No,
That's
I mean,
such a good title for a movie.
Yeah, Batman again.
Yeah, Batman,
Again.
Batman Returns, Batman Begins,
you know,
Batman again.
we'll see
no,
another
no,
Iron Man.
I'm
We'll
not,
see, huh?
I don't know if
yeah,
I'm
but you're
representative
very
of all.
stuck in your ways. Like you don't like change. You know.
You're literally saying that because I don't want to see the same thing over again, I don't like change.
No, what
I'm
I'm
asking
saying
for change. I'm asking for something
I'm saying
different.
it's like these things become biblical texts. You know what I mean? And you can see, you know, Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ, and then you can see some other fucking whatever story about another story in the Bible. And
What are you talking?
I'm talking about like you can reinterpret Harry Potter over centuries.
Oh, of course, yeah.
You know, like Harry Potter. If we fast forward to 200 years in the future, how many fucking versions of Harry Potter are there? 7.
Whoa, jinx.
7
look, I
versions.
mean,
One
adaptation-
new one every 30 years.
that's
Wind
nothing-
back
that's
the audio.
nothing
We
new.
just said 7 at the exact same time then.
But you know what I
that's
mean?
nothing
And
new.
another thing as well, we're in an era where you need as you know, like you do a movie, you bust your nut in one go.
That's how I make movies.
I've seen those. Please stop sending them.
If you have something like a Harry Potter TV series where we release an episode every week, people are fucking glued there. You've got an IP. You go to a company and you say, we've got the new Harry Potter series and it's going to be 2 months of amazing content week after week. That's what it's all about these days. It's about consistent content. It's not about, here's a movie, boom. I honestly think I believe we're going to see less movies over time. We're going to see more TV series.
It's a bummer about Johnny Depp, huh? Miss him already. I actually, funnily enough, when we talked about this, I actually thought his performance in Grindelwald was like the best thing he's done in years. Like, I didn't hate him in that movie, which is
He
more
was.
than
I mean, he wasn't
That makes
bad.
one of
He
us.
certainly wasn't bad.
I didn't hate him, which is more than I can say for
makes one
anything
of
he's done
us.
for quite a while.
Actually thinking back to it,
You just all right. Let's be honest. You hated that franchise before you even like set foot on it. So I
100%.
don't take anything that you say about it
100%.
seriously.
yeah, well, that's good. I'm glad. I'm
I
glad.
mean, I take
I'm
it
glad
less
you figured
seriously
that
than
out.
I would normally.
Yeah, but you guys know I'm right about this TV series thing. Yeah,
I think it'll
Yeah.
happen. I just think they'll go
You-
the
all right,
other
all
route
right,
first.
I will-
I think
I
we'll
will
see. Sorry,
buy you
I think
5
we'll see
steak
Cursed
dinners.
Child before we see
Yeah,
the readaptation.
yeah. I will buy you 5 steak dinners if we get a TV readaptation of the 7 books.
Too many steak dinners.
I know, right?
and,
I
say,
think
and
it's just
apply the
it's
same
such-
principle to
horse
Lord of the
crap.
Rings.
Yeah, but they're not doing that.
Yeah,
to
I
Lord
think
of the
they're
Rings.
idiots. I
What?
think they're idiots.
You want them to remake one of the most beloved trilogies?
Yeah, so we can see the guy at the beginning that everyone
Moron.
missed.
Tom Bombadil.
Tom Bombadil.
I was very bummed about that when that first movie
Bro,
came
I
out.
was fucking bummed.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people were like,
So we should just make a Tom Bombadil series on its own.
Dude, you're onto something.
Yeah. Anyway.
yeah, there was
Oh.
entire chunks out of that.
Was there another news this week?
That was pretty much it.
Thank God not.
We
Thank
really
God.
milked it.
The
for
So
what
we're
it was
really
worth.
running
That's
over
why I
time.
fucking hate talking about Harry Potter.
See,
No.
I didn't complain about lore once, so I think we're good.
Yeah. Anyway, should we move on to, I guess, movie book club?
Yeah.
Unless
Do
anyone
we
has
have
anything
to?
else?
Do
Let's
we
do it.
have to?
We do. We have to start this
Um,
one.
Killing of a sacred deer. I kept confusing it with killing of the sacred deer.
No.
It's killing of
Different
a
thing.
sacred deer.
Mhm.
Which was your pick, Ben.
Yes.
You forewarned us in advance.
Mhm.
I suppose that's what forewarning is.
Mhm.
Retrospectively forewarned us.
In
Advanced
before,
to the side.
before you watched it.
Predating the
That-
experience.
That there was a good chance that we might hate this,
Mm.
which is kind of, in
I think
my
I said you will
estimation,
hate it.
your way of like prepping us or me
I'm a master manipulator.
that it's going to be different,
Uh-huh.
and I need to approach it with an open mind. Having said that, I fucking hated this film.
Not surprising. So let me introduce it, please. I did not. I was not prepared to pick a movie last week. I just have kind of a list of things that I want to revisit. And this one jumped out at me because this is one that has stayed with me since I initially watched it. Yorgos Lanthimos, this director, he's very well known for making The Lobster.
I was gonna say, is this before or after The Lobster?
After.
Yeah, okay.
I had heard about The Lobster for so long, finally got around to watching it and didn't quite know what to make of it. I can't even remember if I watched it before or after this movie.
I remember when you watched it because I was really curious to watch both of these films, and I remember you being very like. Usually, I can get the sense of whether you enjoyed something or not, and I asked you about this one. You're like, I don't know. Like,
yeah.
It's very strange.
I think it was just a position of watching a movie that was very, very different, and having heard so many good things about it and not being sure what to think. I went back today and looked at because every time I watch a movie, I want to get on to Letterboxd to kind of update my rating for it. If I've seen it before or rated it before, I didn't know if I'd rated this. And I hopped on. I'd given this movie 3 stars, which I think is a very odd rating for a movie that is this
It's polarizing.
This odd and this idiosyncratic.
There's a lot of different ways you can rate this film, I feel.
But before you guys get into your feelings about it, I went onto Letterboxd because I wanted to give this movie 4.5 stars because it fucking blew me away this time. And it was really great watching it the second time, having adjusted expectations, knowing what you're in for. You know, a very strange, inhuman, isolating film, disturbing, creepy, odd, cold, very cold. And I watched it with a friend last night, and it was, I just enjoyed it so much. And again, having told you guys you wouldn't like it, I was just like, man, these guys are definitely not going to like it. But I think I didn't even like it the first time I watched it, but it really stayed with me.
Can I ask? Enjoyed. Unpack that a little bit for me.
Yeah. It's a good question.
I think this movie is so horrendously terrifying and also hilarious. And I love that. Like, Yorgos Lanthimos, I think, is a director who loves to just do things that he finds funny and just fuck with people. And I think this movie is so unbelievably bleak that the only response is to be like, this is funny. Because it's just so over the top and so unnatural. You know, this is not a world where people talk like human beings. No. Everything's weird and transactional.
Conversations.
Yeah, odd. So that's I mean, that's the first thing I noticed, and I'm sure it's the first thing that you would have noticed as
Oddity.
well. That is, at least for the first 40 minutes, I'd say, incredibly distracting.
Yeah,
like to the point where I was kind of annoyed by it. Like it was
like I think like. If we sort of even cast our minds back to Black Sheep, you know, that film we kind of discussed, this is almost like an exercise in practical effects in a way. And this film is not narratively dense. There's no great characters. This is purely a vehicle to really make some great effects and sequencing and stuff. So then you think to this film, and enjoy is a word I struggle with this film because I don't think I enjoyed it, but effective? Did it make me feel something? Like, I was disturbed.
Yeah.
So disturbing is the word for it.
It is an interesting film.
Through the art, you know, through his creative. This isn't a typical movie. Like, these characters aren't talking in a normal way. This isn't shot in a normal way. Like, it's got a total oddity vibe to it. So, like, did I enjoy it? No. Did I respect it? Did he have a vision? Did he have a tone of voice? 100%. Did I feel like... I felt odd watching this, you know. And
I think this movie's kind of sickening in a way, in a very deep way.
Every box because I think that's what he was trying to do. So you have to respect it on that level. Entertainment value, there's nothing entertaining about this. It makes you really think about the sort of eye for an eye. You know, that's essentially what it is, right? The sort of like, you know, this happened, so then we're going to take this away from you.
I thought you said iPhone eye. I'm like, this angle I've...
An eye for an eye.
I think it absolutely is an examination of the notion of an eye for an eye and how disgusting that mantra can kind of be if you just play it out literally like that.
And I think that is... I have to give it a 10 out of 10 on that front because in that unpacking of that eye for an eye, which, you know, is like vengeance, get him. They did that to us. You know, it's like there's some real fucking gray area in there. And this film doesn't answer anything, but it presents the scenarios for you. And you can take what you want from this film, but it's definitely dark, nihilistic, and grim.
Yeah, it's an Old Testament parable. And disturbing, I think, really is the perfect word for it because I think that's why this movie really stuck with me. I just had in my mind the queasiness of this score and the cinematography and just the image of like these children like crawling along the ground with bleeding knees, and the dispassionate kind of horror of it. Like I find this movie to be just like abstract horror.
I'm glad that you said abstract, because for me, this is like a Picasso, right? It doesn't follow any of the conventional rules of painting. It's trying to break down the rules, and all that. And there is a certain beauty in that, right?
It's sort of modeling itself off the real world, isn't it? It's like these aren't real. These are kind of real situations, but they're not talking the same.
I mean, there's that. There's something kind of uncanny valley, right? Like this doesn't seem, and it doesn't seem real. And I kind of constantly struggle with that. You know, what makes a story good? I've been thinking about this a lot in the last kind of year or so. What makes a story good? What makes a film, you know, enjoyable? All those kind of aspects, but mostly around the story. And I feel as though, you know, for example, for this one, as with a lot of the picks that we've had lately, it's more of an art, like a visual art piece, like it feels more aesthetic.
It's almost like an installation.
Yeah, that it does an actual story. And I do tend to enjoy films that can at least try to pull off both. Whereas this one, yeah, it does feel like I
feel like I'm
this
really...
is not conventional.
Which is not,
I feel like
not to say it's bad.
I feel like I'm really unintentionally challenging your need for narrative, because a lot of the movies I'm picking don't really have them.
Yeah.
But it's not just narrative, right? Like,
for example,
I mean, dialogue is something that takes me out of any kind of association of this with real people. This is not how real people act. This is not what happens. Like, I mean, you can even have like...
You say that about Star Wars, though, you know? Like,
no, but I was going to use this as an example, right? If you put, like, let's say me or you into those situations, that is a way that presumably you and me might act, right? We can see us as humans acting like that, right? Whereas this is not how anyone would act.
No, and I think that's really where you get into the realm of art, like I think it's all art, definitely, but I think when you're doing something that isn't just telling a story or entertaining, is trying to evoke something.
I like that observation, because I think there's something interesting here where you're almost like looking into, it's almost like there's a piece of glass that you're looking into. Like, it's almost like got this weird... They're almost like a case study happening, or like, I feel like that examination of an eye for an eye, I feel like that is, I could be completely wrong here, but I feel like he's taken that concept and just kind of like, okay, how can we build that out to a whole narrative? And these people aren't really people. They're just kind of vehicles for these different, like, they don't feel
100%.
strange. They feel really strange. They feel like, okay, it's almost like a model map. And it's like, this person goes here. I don't know, that Lars von Trier movie where they're all in those houses, and the
which one?
That Lars von Trier movie with Nicole Kidman, and it's the chalk on the ground, and there's sort of like, instead of being in houses and stuff, this neighborhood is sort of represented by chalk on the ground, and it's got that sort of like,
I've never seen that.
That sort of weird, like, I'm looking into a play, or I'm looking into a model.
Yeah, look, this belongs in like a museum or something. It belongs next to a Picasso. Is his point, and that's not like, you know, Picasso is a very famous and you know, well-renowned artist. So you can't say that it isn't art. You can't say that, you know, subjectively it's good, you know, depending on who's witnessing it in a sense. But I mean, I feel as though movies, what I appreciate about them is story, you know, more than I appreciate some of the other aspects. And that's not to say I don't go to them occasionally for that. Like, if I watch a cheesy action film, I'm clearly not going for the in-depth story or the character development. I want to watch shit blow up. I do enjoy that. This just takes a little bit more effort than that. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know if I'd say it's a good film. I certainly wouldn't say it's a bad film. It's definitely not a bad
It's one
film.
of those things.
It's well executed, I suppose.
I think something I'm becoming a bit more acutely aware of is like conventions within a certain medium. So, for example, on the Stephen King cast, cha-ching, Mike Flanagan's wife, Kate Siegel, she was on an episode recently, and one of the book that they're talking about is The Good Marriage, and she said something about taking this into a movie. There's something about living with these characters for 400 pages. Like, you go back to this situation multiple times, even consuming the media. It feels like a longer length of time. Like, even with the Stand TV series that's coming up, that 1,000 to 1,200 page book, like, they describe reading this book as almost like you don't actually remember what page you're on. You're just existing with these characters, and time's just kind of. And in a movie, you can't quite emulate that. You know, you can emulate that through crossfades or doing a trilogy, but there's like, once that 2 hours is done, people are going to get fidgety, and like, you got to kind of figure things out. So then from there, you sort of go like, okay, what can you do within a movie? Like, you got sound, you have camera, you have people, you know, like, and then sort of the art side of it really starts to become very in focus for me. And then this guy obviously had a vision to create something really disturbing and unpack this idea of an eye for an eye. I can't really fault him. Like, did I love it? Did I think it's really strange and whatnot? Yeah, but is that kind of the point?
Yeah,
I think
it is well executed, right, for the brief.
So is it a good film? Yes, it's a good film. Is it effective? Yes. Did I enjoy it and was I entertained? No. Did it get me thinking? 100%. Maybe entertained. Maybe I'm thinking entertained in this context. I'm thinking entertained as laughed, like laughing.
I guess
entertain is like, was I engaged with the media and did it get me thinking? Yes.
This movie is an undeniably unpleasant experience, and I think that's challenging to tackle. And I do think I keep picking, in especially this case, very contextual films where, like I said, my first viewing, I didn't give this movie a very good rating. For me, I was right in the middle there because I didn't know what to think of it. But coming back to it, and I hope this is something you guys can do one day. I hope this movie sits with you on some level like it did for me, and you can come back to it and kind of watch it through those eyes again, because it's a much better experience. Even
I will definitely use this film to like look down at people that haven't seen it. And kind
Exactly.
of like assert my kind of dominance in cinema. And you haven't seen Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Anyway, we'd be very remiss if we did not talk about Barry Keoghan in this film, because I think he's one of the all-time most disturbing, creepy, fucking terrifying movie villains ever. Villain, if you can even classify him as that necessarily.
I think you can.
I think the movie's way too
Force
complex
of
for that.
nature.
Force of
the
nature.
biting
Sure.
of the arm and shit, like that really fucks me up.
No,
dude.
the most disturbing. So one of the big things that stuck in my mind was the spaghetti scene, because I thought, how the fuck does anyone make eating spaghetti scary?
Terrifying. Yeah.
But I'd forgotten the bit at the end there where he just has that, like, or at the beginning even maybe, where he's just like, I have class in 10 minutes. If I don't make it, they're going to kill me. And he's just like, he does this terrifying, like, impersonation of a human being, which he's not really been fucking with this whole time because he's been so out of character. But it was just like,
the other
heebie-jeebies.
His other when he has to explain what's going on really quickly.
I love that.
It is a really, I mean, this is something we haven't talked about, but the acting in this is superb. And I am not by any stretch of the imagination a Nicole Kidman fan. I find her very grating. But I thought that she was quite good in this. Colin Farrell was amazing.
Everyone had this dispassionate, inhuman dialogue that they had to grapple with,
which made her perfect for it.
I think they all made it work really well. Or they made it, digestible. I'd absolutely love that scene, especially on this rewatch. Seeing how long this movie goes before they give you any hint at all what it's about and what is happening, and you're just like, who the fuck is this kid, and what is Colin Farrell doing with him? Because I'd gone into this movie quite blind. And I think this is one of the very few examples where knowing more about the premise of a film kind of helps with the watching of it.
I think so.
Because going in blind, I think that's why it threw me so much. But
it's
that scene where he finally drops that just huge chunk of exposition where he's just like, you killed someone in my family, you need to kill someone in your family, or they're all going to die. And it's just so like out of left field, like impossible magical reality stuff that's like, what the fuck?
Do you like the... I think it's obviously part of the brief, but do you like the way that they went in that this was very kind of ambiguous as to, is it mystical? Is it like...
It's a world, you know?
I love it. Well, so it's heavily inspired by an old Greek myth. And I think that really comes across. That's why this
Oh,
feels like
I was so curious to find out if he was like running off an old parable or an old,
because it
All right,
feels so much
what
like
is
that,
what
right?
is it?
They name check it in the film. They talk
Do they
about
really?
the daughter having written a report about this story.
Okay, brilliant. I want to check that out because I was
It was about King Agamemnon who he killed a sacred deer in a garden of Artemis or something, and then Artemis demanded that he kill his eldest daughter or whatever.
okay, gotcha.
But I don't know.
Because I wanted to know if there was some deeper truth to this film.
Mm.
Like I wanted to just know if the director had gone for a
Kind of taking a text and adapting it for a new audience, you know?
yeah. I was like,
Like-
I think that just knowing that
Kind of
makes
like
me
taking
like it
Harry
more.
Potter and, you know,
So
Oh
the-
yeah.
you
Well,
know,
wait. 3,000
you know,
years,
kinda like
and
that.
then you can.
Well, the two movies that the two movies this really reminded me of, and I think it's very appropriate, and I like this one a lot more, but were Noah and Mother, which are themselves both kind of Old Testament
close.
films.
Noah, as in like
Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe. Oh, okay. Did you like that?
No, I'm saying I like this movie a lot more. But
Oh, right,
in terms
yeah.
of just their like Old Testament biblical like morality or just
Yeah,
examinations,
Noah
are
was a little
very
bit more
interesting.
on the nose because it was just about
Yeah,
Noah.
yeah. But
Um,
Mother was
yeah.
a really kind of intense examination of that stuff.
I think,
But-
I mean, all right, you could make an argument that most stories are just kind of rehashes of old.
yeah, but that would be completely
stories.
pointless.
Yeah, I know. I just I thought like because it was there's probably someone that was like that. I just wanted to bring it up, but I appreciate when those old kind of like core stories are readapted and kind of examined, particularly when they keep a certain air of the mysticism that was present in the old stories. I mean, you could have probably. I was thinking about this as I was watching it. You could make this movie more sanitized, which might make me enjoy it more. As in, like, you could have it with, without that weird dialogue thing. You could keep the main chunk of music, but make it a little less, not jarring, but just kind of random. You could fix up the mechanics of it as well, so that it's not just some weird mysticism that happens. Like you could, he poisons them somehow or some shit like that. But I
So,
do.
yeah, you could make it much more conventional, but it would be
Yeah.
such a different beast. I don't know. I respect this movie so much, and like I said, I actually enjoyed watching it the second time. And I really like that it goes exactly as far as it says it's going to go right from the title. Like, we had the pleasure of actually watching you watch the last 10 minutes of this movie, and you were very stoic about it. But I love the ending of this movie. Is just he just actually has to shoot
he just
his
does
son,
the thing. Yeah,
and it's like fuck, man.
I was actually thinking about ways that I thought he was, for no particular reason, but I thought he was just going to get 3 syringes, mix them up, and inject.
Hmm.
That's such a. I don't know why he did it that way. That's just poor planning. But I found it also to kind of fizzle out.
Mm.
Like the last scene of them in the diner was cool, but the actual like.
Honestly, I found
part
that
was like-
very, very intense. And I think, and this is not a dig at how you watch this movie, but for me, I have very specific ways I want to watch movies. And
Yeah,
I watched, I watched this in a cinema the first time I watched it,
I'm with you.
and the second time I watched it was on the biggest fucking TV I've ever seen in my life.
For
and it
context,
helps a lot.
I watched this on my phone. It's not the way you should be watching this kind of film.
No, this
I
movie,
accept that.
Yeah, but like I said, that's not a criticism of you. That is a criticism of
I mean,
just watching movies in general.
I'm deserving of criticism in this case. So
Because I did
Fire
the same.
away.
I had to watch a bit of Blair Witch last week on my phone,
Yeah.
and that movie already wasn't super effective for me. But I could definitely notice that it was not doing anything for me when I was watching it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, George, any other thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, a bunch of things, man. Let's start listing them off. Nah, I think we've covered it all, man. I think ultimately what's lacking in this film for me is I think there's so many like interesting ethical or like there's so much, but it's just lacking a little bit of humanity to it. And I think it's just that it's just a little bit too strange where something like Satan Maud still a fucked up story, but has the humanity, has the character in it, and that it's just for my sensibilities where I'm really loving a film, you know. So as I said, this film is, I think he would be happy with his creative output in this, and for me, that is the greatest success you can have.
I was saying to a friend earlier today, I don't think there's a director out there who gives less of a fuck what people think than Yorgos Lanthimos.
And you know, for me, as somebody who gives so much of a fuck what other people think, it's such a nice notion, and
It's
refreshing.
Aspiration, isn't it? Oh fuck, that'd be nice. That's an interesting comment you just made about no one giving less of a fuck. Apart from him and David Lynch, who would you put in that category of just not giving two fucks what other people want their movies to be?
I'd say Lynch is even more incoherent, though.
I'd say he's more incoherent, but I'd say to a fault. I'm not the biggest Lynch fan. I think he probably kind of loves how much people don't understand.
He
his
feeds
movies.
on it, yeah.
Exactly.
But I was gonna say other than Lynch and this guy.
Well, I would think.
belongs
I think
in that.
Yorgos is like, he's just making these for himself. I don't think he's doing the same thing. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think there is one more than this guy.
It's interesting. It's a bit of a rare. I mean, it's rare for someone to exist in the institution of, let's say, Hollywood or kind of big films and maintain that. I will be super interested to see how he continues on his career.
Well, you know, he made The Favorite, right?
I did not know that. No.
Yeah, that was a huge success at the Oscars. That was easily his most accessible film and was still very off kilter.
Yeah.
Like-
And having said that, he got some major talent in this one. So I mean, who's to say he's not there already?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is he Irish?
He's Greek.
Oh, he's Greek.
Yorgos Lanthimos.
Yeah.
But I think he I think he's second. I think he's from the UK, right? Like he's
Yeah. The
born
reason
and
I ask
bred.
because it is an Irish film.
Yeah,
So
I don't know his full background, but
yeah,
interesting fellow.
yeah, it's fascinating.
I'm very keen to see what he
Cool.
does after The Favorite.
His what?
After The Favorite.
Oh, okay.
Keen to see what he does because he's kind of hit the mainstream now.
Yeah.
Oh, I do want to check out The Lobster. Because that's also got Colin Farrell.
Yeah, I got to rewatch that.
Cool.
So it's me next.
Jim?
Yeah. George, do you have a pick for us?
So Saint Maud has very much inspired me to think like, how can you do that, but in a werewolf way?
Okay.
So I've been thinking
Not
like,
my
what's a
takeaway.
cool werewolf movie that I don't know if anyone's seen? And there's not many. It's fucking slim pickings in the werewolf genre. Like, there's not that many good werewolf films, meaning opportunity.
I've seen Underworld. That's a.
But evidently, there's a great werewolf film. There's got 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's from 2000 called Ginger Snaps.
I knew you were going
I've
to say
seen that.
You've seen that?
Have
you seen this?
No, but it's been on my list for a while.
You looked so disappointed there, though.
I don't know. You said
No,
yes. I mean,
I haven't seen Ginger Snaps.
well, that's great. That's great. So
Yeah.
this is supposed to be like, it's a horror comedy. I think it's quite fun and scary, and it's supposed to be really, really great. So
Awesome.
I think this could be a fun one.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's really interesting. I have enjoyed like the picks coming from like those three different spots of none of us have seen it and we're just like going out on a limb, heard it's good or something like that.
Yeah.
And us all coming into that. The other one being, I've seen this, you haven't seen this, and I want to see a reaction.
Yes.
And then like the other one of us all having seen it and just
Only been like
revisiting.
one, none of us have seen it before. Or one or two.
That none of us have seen it. Potentially only one or two. It's hard to find a bunch of movies that you haven't seen.
Yes.
That's
Yeah, I know.
Good pick, though. I've been wanting to see this for a while.
Hell yeah.
cool.
All right. Another episode done and dusted.
Oh,
Take it easy, fellas.